All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to introduce you to Joyce from the Joyce of Cooking. Today, just in time for dinner, Joyce will be showing us how to prepare a stir-fry noodle dish, which sounds amazing. As Joyce goes through the presentation, you might have questions. If you want, you can raise your hand. If there's an opportunity to answer the question, I'll let Joyce know and we'll try to answer them. But if we are not able to during the presentation, we will definitely answer all of your questions at the end. So you can either put them in the chat or just raise your hand at the end and we'll make sure we answer everybody's questions. So without further ado, I would like to pass things over to Joyce. Welcome, Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. So like Amy was saying, my name is Joyce. I have a food blog called Joyce of Cooking, and you can check it out at www.joyceofcooking.com. So today we're going to be, cleaning out the fridge. A lot of times, we buy a lot of stuff at the grocery store and then we kind of forget about it because it can get buried into our fridge. So what I actually did was I bought no new ingredients. I just went into my fridge and just pretty much grab everything that I had available. So I had, half a red pepper, I had one random carrot over here, some garlic and ginger, onion, a cabbage that I kind of like hacked off a little bit here and there. And then noodles wise, you can really kind of use whatever noodles. So we have some regular chow mein noodles from the grocery store, or if you have rice noodles or even pasta, you can definitely use that as well. So my main thing is that I really want to showcase how you can use whatever you have in the fridge, whether you want to put it on noodles or rice, but you can kind of make it your own as long as you have a key couple of ingredients that we use a lot of in Asian cooking, which is ginger, garlic, and soy sauce or tamari. So tamari is just the gluten-free version of soy. It doesn't have the wheat in it. So if you have no allergies or you're not gluten-free, you can definitely just use regular soy. But I would say these are the three main components to kind of any kind of Asian cuisine. So as long as you have these ingredients, you can really kind of use whatever vegetables you have at home. So as I walk through, I'm going to show you a couple of tips of how to prepare the veggies, but also how you can stretch things out a little bit longer, some tips in terms of regrowing veggies as well, especially now that we're getting into our spring and summer season. Today doesn't really feel like spring or summer, but, we're getting warmer and there's different ways that you can kind of save products to grow. So I have a little bucket always with me whenever I'm cooking, which is where I keep the scraps. So a couple of things you can do with scraps like skins from, your onion or your garlic, you can compost it obviously, or what you can do is you can actually save them all, put them in a Ziploc bag. And as you collect more and more of it, you can make veggie stock that way so that you don't waste anything. With onion and garlic skin, you can actually, create like a bug repellent for your veggie plants during the summer as well. So you can actually just boil the skin for a little bit. And then you can even add like chili, stuff like that. But it's like a bug deterrent in terms of getting some nasty bugs off of your veggie plants during the summer. So what I do is I usually cut about 3 cloves of garlic. Again, garlic is a very personal thing. So if you prefer more or less, do whatever your heart's content. Another thing about garlic is that you can actually get like a big pack of garlic that's still like on its vine or whatever you like to call it, but you can get it from Costco and it's a big Costco size pack. And what you can do is those are always cheaper than to just buy like 1 or 2 pieces of garlic. So what I like to do is buy one of those packs, bring it home, take like, an hour of your time, peel them all, put them all into a blender or a food processor, add olive oil or whatever oil you like, and you just blend it all up, put it into a glass jar, and you can just scoop up garlic and use wherever you need to. So that just makes life easier in terms of cooking. You always have garlic available, but you're also saving a lot of money buying the bulk size as opposed to buying like piece by piece. So my pan is off right now. I'm just gonna throw all of the ingredients in here. So I'm going to save my garlic peels for making veggie stock. I'm going to also get some ginger. So ginger is probably one of my favorite things in terms of cooking and making ginger tea. One fun thing to peel for those who haven't seen it is actually to use a spoon to peel it. So again, to reduce waste, when we use a peeler or cut it with a knife, we kind of remove a lot of the flesh from the ginger. So if you use a spoon, you can actually see that there's very little waste in terms of what we're throwing out. And again, you can save it for ginger tea. You can save it for your compost, veggie stock, whatever you like. And if you really don't want to peel it, you can actually just give it a good scrub, like use one of those mushroom scrubbies that you can buy in the stores with the harder bristles. Give it a wash and you can actually eat the ginger skin too. But what I like to do is I actually like to grate it. So I love ginger, so I go a little crazy with how you love. You can put however much you like, but I like to grate it. And that's because it gives you only the juice and the part of the flesh that's not stringy. So you can see when I grate it, the stringy bit is left over on the actual ginger. And as you grate the whole thing, all of the stringy bit will be left over here and you can just put it into your compost. But then all of the good stuff is left over here and you can actually just scrape that into your pan like so. And then we're also going to do some onions and peppers. I have a carrot here as well. So let's do the carrot first. So carrot, you can actually cut off the top like so. Whenever you buy carrots from the grocery store or farmer's market, wherever you get it from, the top sometimes has a little bit of the green leaves on it already. If you have that, or even if there's nothing here yet, you cut about like 1 inch off the top, put it into a little bowl or a small jar with water, and you will actually grow the green tops. So it won't, like on the internet, you might see stuff like, oh, then now you're going to grow a whole new carrot, but it won't grow a whole new carrot. What it will do is actually grow the leaves, like the green part, and then eventually it's going to flower. And then when it flowers, it produces seeds, and you can collect the seeds. Then next year you can grow it and you'll get actual carrots. So fun tip there to kind of save these. You can obviously put them into your veggie stock as well. I personally don't peel my carrots. Just, you know, it's like you can give it a good scrub and it's good to go. If you want to peel your carrots, you can save those as well. But for me, I gave it a good wash earlier already. So I'm just going to chop it up. And if you do go to Costco and buy like huge bags of produce, or if you go to like a supermarket and get, you know, the produce that are kind of like in the almost past due and they're going to throw it out, you can get really great deals there, but it's almost at the end of its life. So to kind of stretch it out as much as possible, you kind of come home with all of your veggies and you can cut them all up and put them into the freezer, kind of like how you get frozen veggies from the supermarket anyway. But now you're stretching that life of the veggie, especially since like produce is never cheap. Especially nowadays, produce is like super expensive, but we want to incorporate it into all of our meals. So that's just a great way to kind of save some additional money. And especially during like in season, like right now we have asparagus that's really in season. So you can get like great deals on asparagus, like $2.99 for a big bunch. But you know, that doesn't last very long. It's usually probably for only a few more weeks. So if you buy like a whole bunch of it now, you can chop it up, freeze it, and have really good asparagus. So I'm just chopping up my carrots over here. And you can cut it up however you like. If you have baby carrots, like the ones that are already cut into the little forms, and you have some extra, you can definitely put them in here as well. You can just chop it up into, I like to chop it up into cubes because I want everything to kind of cook as quickly as possible. And I'm making like a vegetarian version today, but if you prefer to have some meat in yours, a great way to kind of clean out the fridge is like the rotisserie chicken. You know, when you go to the supermarket and buy the cooked rotisserie chicken, and you always have like a little bit left and you don't finish it, if you just shred the meat, it's like perfect to use for a recipe like this. pepper wise, same thing. So pepper, you can actually save all of the seeds in a pepper and grow pepper plants. A lot of people don't know, but red pepper is just a ripened version of a green pepper. So it's pretty much, a green pepper is not so sweet, and then as you let it kind of ripen on the vine, when you grow it, it will turn into red pepper. So again, you can definitely save the seeds. Just imagine like there's usually like probably hundreds of seeds in each red pepper. And you don't have to obviously grow them all at once. You can just dry them and you can actually keep them. So like maybe you want a couple of plants this year, but you want to save it. So you can have like a never ending supply of pepper plants, which is pretty cool. You can share with your family and friends as well. And it is not hard to grow peppers yourself. You can even do it in a container garden if you don't have a lot of space or you don't have raised garden beds or anything like that. So in the pan, we have ginger, garlic, carrot, and now the red pepper, which I diced up similar shape as well. And then I also have just like cucumber left over from a class that I did last week. So I'm like, might as well, don't waste it. And we can just throw this guy in as well. And a great thing to add if you have mushrooms is mushroom to any kind of stir-fry noodle or rice dish, because mushroom really absorbs the flavor of like soy sauce and stuff like that. So it would be really, really tasty. And I find like when you buy mushrooms, a lot of the times you don't use it all at once and then it gets like soggy and it kind of goes bad pretty quickly. So that's a good way to kind of use it up as well. And then we have, so we'll do the onion first. And then I also want to show you green onions as well. So green onions and onions, you can actually regrow too. So if you take your onion, you see how one end always has the little roots on the bottom. So if you cut that off like so, you can dip it into a bucket of water, like a little bowl of water, and then it will start rooting again, and you can plant it into soil. And you can have tons of onions that way as well. Onions, and it's not hard to grow as well. You just need to make sure that you have enough space for it to grow. So we're gonna just peel this guy. And again, you can save all of this peel for making a bug deterrent for your veggie plant or veggie stock. And you'll just go ahead and cut it up into small cubes like we did for the rest of the veggies right now. And if you don't have white onions, you can definitely use red onions, shallots. All those guys are pretty much the same for a recipe like this. Generally speaking, like you want like a red onion for if you're going to eat it raw, like in a burger, because it's sweeter. But when you're going to cook the product anyway, like in this dish, you don't really have to worry about what kind of onion you're using. Just whatever you have at home is good. And then with green onions is also used in a lot of Asian cuisine. So green onions, what I usually do is I buy a bunch and then I take a little bit and I just use whatever I need. So let's say I only need a little bit. But what I do is I actually keep because you always get the roots with green onions usually, even in a grocery store. And I just put them into a jar and put them by the windowsill. And it will just keep growing. There will be endless amount of green onions. It's better if you put them into soil so that it gets more nutrients, but if you don't have the space, you can definitely do that. Like anybody can do that and just get unlimited supplies of green onions. So we'll put a little bit in as well, and at the end we can put some as garnish too. And then we have this big guy, this cabbage. So I find like a lot of times when you get cabbage, you don't use it all and then it kind of sits in your fridge because you want to use it, you don't want to waste it, but then it starts getting bad, right? So one tip is, so let's say we only need this much today for our dish, and then now you have this whole big guy left over. What you can do is take a box grater, the ones that you kind of grate cheese with, grate that into Ziploc bags and freeze them. So you can even go to the extent of, portioning it out. So maybe a small Ziploc bag so that you can just take one bag out at a time whenever you're cooking a stir fry. But that way it will last a really long time. I find with cabbage, it lasts quite a bit of time in the fridge, but when you put it in the freezer, it lasts like forever. So really good way to not waste it as well if you have to buy such a big one anyway. So we're gonna dice this guy up as well into cubes, and then we'll just throw this guy in here too. And then if you are the kind of person that like to meal prep ahead, you can kind of just create baggies or containers of these veggies ahead of time and label them, put them in your fridge or freezer. And then when you are, really crunched for time on a weeknight and you want a healthy meal still, you can just take a bag of frozen veggies. You can put like stir-fried veggies and you can just dump it into your pan frozen, and it will warm it up. It will be just as delicious, but then you save a lot of time and you still can eat a really healthy meal that way. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on this guy. And one thing to kind of know in terms of like sustainability and kind of not just for food wise, obviously we have a lot of stuff we want to talk about sustainability for food, but I wanted to kind of talk about the pan as well. So I use cast iron pans for pretty much everything, from baking like muffins in a cast iron pan to a pan like so, and even like a wok. I have like a wok that's also a cast iron. And the reason is because I find when you buy the nonstick pans, even though they're great and easy to clean, easy to use, easy to maintain, after a little bit of time, they start sticking because the coating starts coming off and you can't really use it anymore, and then you end up throwing it out and then buying more stuff, right? So with a cast iron pan, like to me, I feel like it's gonna last forever. If you have a family member that has one and they're passing it down, it can literally last like forever. And it's not hard to use. A lot of people are a little bit intimidated in terms of using cast iron and cleaning it. But if you maintain it from day one, it's really, really easy to use. And it's probably a little bit more expensive than like a nonstick pan to begin with. However, if you think about the life of it, it will pay for itself. So I added a little bit of veggie oil in here to get the vegetables started. You can also do canola oil. You can also do avocado oil. The oil that you want in Asian cooking is always a neutral oil that can stand high heat. So the reason is because whenever we're cooking Asian food, we're using really high heat and we're cooking it as quickly as possible. So if you use something like olive oil, what tends to happen is it'll start smoking too much, and then you'll burn the oil, which will give you that burnt taste in your food, which you don't want. And the reason why we use such a high heat is because, way back when they started cooking first, fuel, so like fire or gas, was really, really expensive. So they were trying to like penny pinch and make sure that they save as much money as possible. So they only want to use fuel for a very short amount of time, which is why you see like most recipes for Asian food is like cut everything into small little cubes so that it cooks faster that way. So we have our veggies going. I can smell the garlic and the ginger already. It smells so good. I wish you guys can smell it. But while we kind of wait for all of these veggies to soften up a little bit, we can talk about the sauces that we're going to put in. So today I have soy sauce or tamari. We have a sesame oil. This one is a toasted sesame oil, which is really good. But if you have regular sesame oil, that's totally fine too. And then over here we have hoisin sauce. So this is just what I grabbed from the fridge because, we're cleaning it out. However, if you don't have hoisin sauce, you can use, if you have oyster sauce, for example, in your fridge, you can definitely use it as well. All of these flavors are very interchangeable for Asian cooking. So as long as you have soy and sesame seed oil as your base of your sauce, you can kind of throw in a little bit of whatever else you have in your pantry. And if you don't have hoisin and oyster sauce at all, and you only have these two, you can just use soy sauce and sesame oil. It'll still taste really, really good. Okay, so the veggies are getting nice and soft now. And then, so today I'm using the chow mein that you can get from the grocery store, which is just a dried version. So it comes in a pack of like 6. You can get like a pack for, I don't know, like $2, something like that. And it's just dried noodles. So it lasts in your pantry forever. But it's always good to kind of use it up so that it doesn't get like soft and soggy after a while. So you would just boil it in regular water for a couple of minutes until it gets softened. And I always try to not cook it too soft, only because you're going to put it into the pan with some heat here as well, which will continue the cooking process. If you're using rice noodles, like these rice noodle sticks, you don't even need to cook them. You can just soak them in room temperature water or a little bit warmer for maybe 15 minutes. Fish them out of the water, and you can put it right into your pan. The heat of the pan will continue it cooking, and it will be nice and soft when it's done. If you don't have any of these Asian noodles at home, you can also use pasta noodles as well, and you would just cook the pasta, 6-7 minutes, like how you would normally cook pasta, and you can put it in as well. Most noodles, whether it's labeled Asian noodles or pasta noodles, is really just made out of flour and water. And then the rice noodles are obviously just made with like rice flour, water, and a little bit of other ingredients to bind it together. So it's very neutral in terms of flavor wise, which is why pasta noodle works really well still. Pasta noodle with no sauce is very neutral anyway. So you get to kind of absorb all of those delicious flavors that we're going to put in here too. Okay, so veggies, it's pretty much nice and soft, and I'll just show that to you guys over here. So it's nice and soft. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and put our cooked noodles right into the pan as well. And then we're going to just break it up a little bit. I cooked this maybe half an hour before the class started to kind of just strain out all of the water that was in it. The starch here, it is, what happens is that it kind of gets gummy when you put it into your pan. So make sure you rinse it out once it's done cooking so that the starch is not in there. So mix the veggies with the noodles. And then we're going to introduce the flavor. So at this point, we haven't added any salt, any pepper, nothing like that. Because we want to just kind of get the flavors from the sauce alone. Soy sauce obviously has sodium in it already, so generally you don't put additional salt in here. And even like Hoisin's oyster sauce has a little bit of sodium in it, so you don't need to add extra. So here, depending, and I'll send the recipe to Amy afterwards so she can share with you guys, but depending on how much you're making, you're gonna just put in like 1 to 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And obviously, less is more. It's always better to put less, taste it, and then if you're like, not salty enough, or it needs more flavor, you can add it afterwards. Whereas if you just dump it all in, even if you're following a recipe, it might be too salty to your taste, so it's like way easier to just add more afterwards. And I put in about 1 teaspoon of the sesame oil. Sesame oil, if you haven't had it, has quite a strong flavor to it as well. So you want to go easier on that guy for sure. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just mix all of the ingredients together and just make sure all the veggies, all the noodles are soaking in all of the sauce. And then I'm going to also put in my hoisin sauce. And this is probably about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of this, again, depending on how much you like. And then we're going to just give it a good mix. And then at this point, once all of the flavors are mixed together, you can kind of give it a taste and see, is it, to your liking, and you can adjust accordingly. And then at this point, what I usually do, if I'm making a vegetarian version, for sure, you can just stop here and enjoy. But if you are cleaning out your fridge and you got a couple of eggs, ready to go, you can actually add some eggs in here, which will give it a little bit of boost in protein as well. And what I do is I push all of the ingredients off to the side of the pan because no one wants to clean another dish. So what I do is I push everything off to the side like so that I have an open space. And then I add a little bit of veggie oil. And then I just crack my 2 eggs right into the pan so that there's one less dish to clean. And the eggshells, you can actually save those 2 for your garden. You can break these eggshells up, wash them, dry them, put them into like a coffee grinder, or even just smash them with your a mortar and pestle. And you can actually use this to add calcium to your tomato plants to prevent that blossom end rot. So we're gonna just stir fry the eggs here a little bit. And at this point, you can add black pepper, white pepper if you prefer to. I generally don't add any more salt, like I said, because there's sodium in all of the ingredients that we put in already. And we want to scramble the egg off to the side before we mix it in, so that we get nice ribbons of eggs within all of the noodles here. So that will take like 2 seconds to cook, kind of like your morning breakfast scrambled eggs. And then what you'll do at this point, once the eggs are almost done cooking, I like to just chop it up, and then I stir the noodles into it and kind of incorporate all of the eggs into the noodles as well. And you can turn off the heat at this point because you don't want to overcook the eggs and make them super dry. So now we have incorporated our eggs into the noodles as well. And then at this point, you can add your garnish like sesame seeds if you like. You can also take some of your green onions. So I like to take a little bit of green onions and just chop it up and use it as a garnish. And green onions, some people don't like the taste, so a little goes a long way, but it gives it a nice little color because we put green onions in here, but by the time you cook it, it's more for the flavor. You don't really see it. So let me just plate it up and show you guys. And this will keep in the fridge for, 3 days or so. You can just heat it up in the microwave, or you can throw it back into a pan and just kind of warm it up like how we cooked this, so that we can warm it thoroughly. And then we grab a little bit of all of the veggies. And it's beautiful too because you get like the colors of the rainbow, some red, some orange, some green. And then you take your garnish of your green onions and you just put it on top. And you can put your sesame seed here as well if you like. And then you have a nice little dish of everything in your fridge that you just kind of cleared out, and nothing goes to waste. Here you go. So it's really, really easy. It's super tasty, and it's not even good for like a weeknight meal. It's just good for like any meals. It's so full of nutrition as well. There's tons of veggies in here. And if you don't have the veggies we use today, you can definitely use whatever veggies you have kind of sitting in your fridge. I think that's the beauty of cooking a dish like this. You can really make it your own and put your flair into it. If you are a huge fan of like all different kind of peppers, you can put all different colors into it as well to make it really, really fun that way. Any questions?
Joyce, this looks amazing. I have to tell you, I can't wait to try to make this at home. I'm definitely going to. I have a couple of questions. My first question is, I love heat. I love spice. What do you recommend, or what do you suggest for Asian dishes when you want to make it spicy?
So one thing you can add is Thai chili peppers. So those are the little tiny ones that are like super tiny, and you think how spicy can they be, but then you bite into it and it's like really, really spicy. So those guys are perfect for this, and you can just chop it up and stir fry with the rest of your vegetables to begin with. But just be cautious because they look very deceiving. They look not so spicy, but they are. And the thing is, when you go to the Asian grocery store, I find that when you buy those peppers, they sell it to you in a huge pack. It's never just like 1 or 2. So if that's the case, I freeze them as well. So I just take one out when I need to use it. And you can chop it up while it's frozen, or what you can do is you can just rinse it under a little bit of warm water, and then it will be really soft to be able to chop up anyways. But that's a really great way to add heat. If you don't have that and you can't find red chili peppers, what you can do is just take sriracha sauce or any kind of like your favorite hot sauce that we probably all have a bottle in our fridge. And you can just add that in when we add like the soy and the sesame oil, and it'll give it a little bit of a kick for you too.
I like that suggestion because normally a sriracha is one of my favorite hot sauces, and I do add it to a lot of things. It goes amazing with eggs, in my opinion. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love sriracha. It's interesting to think about having to put it in like while you're cooking it, because typically I would add it like at the end, but I will try that where I'm incorporating it with the sauces. I have another.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you add it with the ingredients, what I find is that all of the veggies, especially like when you're using cabbage and carrots and the veggies that are like, or even like mushrooms, like we were talking about earlier, it's like a sponge. It just kind of absorbs all of the flavors in. So you have like, it sucks up all of the soy. And then if you do the sriracha sauce, it like kind of absorbs it in so that you get that more rounded flavor for your whole dish while you're eating it. And then if you prefer spicier, maybe someone in your family doesn't like it as spicy, you can put extra on the side afterwards and kind of just mix it into whoever wants a little bit spicier.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I have another question. So Joyce, I know that you are a fan of MSG, and I noticed that you did not use it in this recipe, and I'm wondering why.
There's no reason. I use it personally for all of my cooking. So MSG is monosodium glutamate for people who are not familiar with it. And there's been just a lot of stigma in terms of using it. So back in the 70s, there was like a false report saying that MSG is not safe to use, and it created health issues. So everyone kind of got on board and went, oh no, I can't use it. It gives me a headache. It gives me whatever symptoms. However, as the years went by, they did more research to find out that it is safe to use. And for me, like, I find that it kind of kicks up your flavor. So whether you're making like a stock or ramen or a noodle dish like this, or even like tomato sauce for your pasta, if you just sprinkle a little bit in, it kind of like oomps the flavor up a little bit. And the reason is because it creates umami, which is a flavor that, like, when you eat the most delicious pizza with cheese, Parmesan cheese and tomato, and you're just like, oh, it's so good. That's like that umami taste, right? So a lot of food has it naturally. So like I said, tomato actually has MSG in it naturally, Parmesan cheese, mushrooms, and even breast milk has it naturally. So yes, adding it's different than just eating like a tomato that has it already. However, I think everything in moderation is completely fine to do. When you do MSG, the cool thing about it is for a lot of people who are kind of watching their sodium intake, you can actually reduce the amount of salt you put in, because it creates that really satisfying taste for you through using MSG already, so that you don't have to put that much salt into it. So if you were to put it in this dish, absolutely you can. You can put it in while we put the sauce and all of that good stuff in and give it a good mix. And honestly, you just need like a pinch, and it's like, you will taste the difference. When I do cooking demos in person, I make like microwave popcorn, and one popcorn will have just nothing on it, like how you would just pop it and eat it. And then another popcorn, I'll sprinkle a little bit of MSG onto it. And then I give you the two samples to kind of taste, and everybody can taste the difference automatically. Like, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what it is, but you're just like, this one just tastes more satisfying. It has more of a flavor profile to it. And then when I tell them, well, it's because there's MSG in it, a lot of people are surprised by it. So it's something that I would encourage you to try. You can and it's not only in Asian cooking. Many other cultures, like Jamaican food, has a lot of MSG in it as well. And even if you're making like a hearty soup, that's like a really good way to add it in. It just makes it like super satisfying. And you can buy it at the grocery store for like $3.99, and you get like a giant bag that'll last you forever. But yeah, you can definitely add it to this dish for sure.
That's awesome. I learned so much from you about MSG. So thank you so much for that. If there are no other questions in the chat or anything like that, that's okay. I'm sure that Joyce, like, would you be okay if people contacted you or
absolutely.
your Instagram account and things like that afterwards? I'm sure there's lots of opportunity to connect with you and ask more questions for anyone who might be watching at home or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Joyce, I just want to wrap it up by saying thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. I learn something new every single time, and your food is always delicious. I made the last one was a fried rice recipe, and I made it at home, and oh my gosh, it was so good. So I want to also thank our partners, the Mohawk Students Association, and obviously Mohawk Sustainability for putting on this webinar, and so much to Joyce for doing such a great job. And thank you so much always for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And just one last thing before I forget. Last time when I did the class, we were talking about Food Fund, this website that you can buy produce, like ugly produce that generally gets thrown into the garbage. Yes. So the company actually gave us a promo code, which you can get $5 off if you want to try the service out. And you use the code JOYH5. Which I will send to you as well, Amy, afterwards, so you can share with everybody here. But it's just an organization that buys ugly produce that normally the grocery stores don't want. And they usually just go in the garbage, which is like, breaks my heart. But you can buy it. You can get organic produce or regular produce from their website. They deliver it right to your door. And some of the ingredients today we use is from them. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's completely okay to use and delicious. And it's just feel good to know that you're not throwing all of that stuff in the garbage.
Yes. And actually, since the last time we were together, I started looking for fruit and vegetables in the discounted section of my grocery store. And honestly, I'm loving it. So I would encourage everyone to check out their produce section, their local grocery store for reduced produce, because it's awesome. So thank you again so much.
No problem. It's nice seeing everybody. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.